In a quiet neighborhood where lavender bushes lined every fence, and the only sound at night should have been crickets, something wasn't right. A strange buzzing in the dark, backyard lights flickering, a creeping feeling that someone was watching. But no one listened until a retired FBI surveillance expert moved in. What he uncovered would shake the entire community. Drones, hidden mics, an HOA running a secret surveillance network under the guise of safety, but they picked the wrong man to spy on. He didn't just expose the truth, he brought the law straight to their doorstep. This isn't just a story about privacy, it's a warning. Because if it can happen in Willow Creek, it can happen anywhere. This is how one man turned his quiet retirement into a full-blown federal takedown. Welcome to They Watched Every Yard. He made them answer to the law. Cole Maddox had chosen Willow Creek Estates for its silence. Tucked just outside a sleepy town with a population barely cracking 6,000, it was the kind of place where people waved to each other from across driveways and left their porch lights on a little longer than necessary. After 2 decades with the FBI, Cole was ready to trade in surveillance vans and sting operations for garden hoses and a good recliner. That was the plan anyway. But peace has a strange way of revealing cracks. It started with a sound, a faint, persistent buzzing that returned every Thursday night at just past 10. It wasn't the normal whir of a neighbor's hobby drone. Cole knew drones better than most. He had used them during operations, tracked them, even dismantled them when needed. This one was different. Its pitch was higher, its path more deliberate, never lingering over one house for long, but always revisiting the same few. The first night he heard it, he brushed it off. Maybe a kid nearby had picked up a new toy. But the second week he stepped outside barefoot into the cool grass, eyes scanning the sky, ears trained on the dark. He saw nothing. Just stars and the silhouette of rooftops against the navy blue night. But the sound was there. Close. Watching. By week 3, Cole was perched on the edge of his porch in a folding chair, a small audio recorder in one hand and a pair of binoculars in the other. When the buzzing began, he followed it, barely catching a glimpse of the tiny speck gliding across the top of Mrs. Jensen's backyard, then pausing over the Green family's trampoline. That same night, he found Linda waiting up in the living room, reading a paperback and sipping chamomile tea. Her eyes met his as soon as he walked in, and she didn't have to ask. She knew that look. It was the same one he wore in D.C. when something wasn't adding up. "You think someone's watching?" she asked. "Not watching," he said slowly. "Surveying." She put the book down, the HOA. Cole didn't answer right away. He wasn't ready to point fingers, not without proof. But in his mind, names were already forming. The HOA had always rubbed him the wrong way. Too many rules, too much obsession with control. They had fined a neighbor last fall for painting his mailbox off-white instead of pure white. And when Linda put in lavender bushes by the fence last spring, the HOA made them submit a plant-type report. She had laughed about it, but Cole had felt the edge of something colder underneath. The next morning, he started laying out the tools. From a box he had kept sealed since retirement, he pulled out a long-range frequency scanner, a small EMP jammer he'd modified in his final year with the Bureau, and a data signal tracker. The tech was old school, but it worked. And more importantly, it wouldn't alert anyone watching that he was watching them back. He set up his own surveillance station in the garage. Nothing that looked suspicious from the outside. A fold-out table, an old laptop, some tools. The kind of space any bored retiree might use to build birdhouses or fix lawnmower blades. By week 4, Cole had mapped out the drone's usual flight path. It covered 7 houses in total. Always the same sequence, never at random. And each pass lasted between 15 to 20 minutes. Whoever was flying it was working off a pre-programmed route, automated, efficient. That night, he followed it with the scanner and locked onto the signal. It was broadcasting on a secured 5.8 GHz band with embedded GPS data. That alone was strange. Hobby drones didn't use encrypted transmission. This was professional grade. The next morning, Cole knocked on his neighbor's door. "Morning, Jack," he said to the retired firefighter across the street. Maddox Jack nodded, sipping coffee from a faded Marine Corps mug. "You're up early. Just wondering if you've seen any drones lately, or heard anything buzzing around at night." Jack frowned. "Now that you mention it, yeah. Woke me up last week. Thought maybe it was the utility company checking lines or something." "They do that with drones," Jack shrugged. "You'd be surprised." Cole thanked him and moved on. He asked 4 other neighbors the same question over the next few days. All of them had noticed something strange, but none of them had any idea where it came from. And none of them had been told anything by the HOA. That was the moment the quiet broke. Cole wasn't ready to accuse the HOA yet, but he couldn't ignore the pattern, especially when he spotted the small lavender bush in his backyard twitching against the wind that wasn't there. He walked over slowly and found it. A micro-drone the size of his palm wedged between the stems, its camera lens cracked but still blinking red. No tags, no serial number, just a smudged sensor and a faint blinking signal light. He scooped it into a tin box and brought it into the garage. Linda stepped in behind him an hour later to find him hunched over the bench, the drone half disassembled in front of him. "Tell me I'm wrong," she said. Cole didn't look up. "I think we're being watched." "By who?" He finally looked up. "By the people who promised to protect this neighborhood." And with that, the last bit of peace Cole Maddox had tried to build for himself faded into something colder, something sharper. He wasn't just going to uncover what was going on. He was going to dismantle it. Cole didn't sleep that night. The little drone sat quietly in the garage, its cracked lens turned upward like a wounded eye. The more he examined it, the clearer the truth became. This wasn't a kid's toy. The micro-drone had multiple embedded sensors, including thermal and night vision, and was custom-built with a digital camouflage skin designed to blend into foliage. Whoever deployed it wasn't playing around, they were hiding in plain sight. By noon the next day, Cole had rigged a portable jammer in a toolbox and loaded it into the back of his SUV. He wasn't planning to use it just yet. It was illegal to jam frequencies in most civilian zones, but knowing he had it gave him control. And Cole always worked better with control. Linda sat across from him at breakfast, slowly stirring her coffee, her expression thoughtful. "If this is HOA business," she said, "they'll claim it was for security." "Security doesn't mean pointing cameras into people's bedrooms," Cole replied. "You're going to push this, aren't you?" He gave a small nod. "I didn't spend 20 years shutting down foreign surveillance cells just to get spied on while watering the lawn." Linda leaned in. "Then don't go in alone." That afternoon, Cole visited a friend, Doug Parrish, a local repair tech who used to work in telecommunications before taking early retirement. Doug owed him a favor. More than one, actually. Cole placed the drone on Doug's cluttered workbench. "I need you to pull everything off this," he said. "Flight paths, last signal, origin storage logs. Whatever you can get." Doug blinked. "This is military grade. Where'd you get it?" "Caught it hiding in my lavender bush." Doug chuckled. "Not exactly standard issue." "Exactly." It took Doug 2 hours to break into the onboard memory. When he finally got in, what they found made Cole's jaw tighten. The drone had been active for over 6 months. Each night it followed a preset course that included 7 homes, Cole's among them. It recorded video and audio. Some files were encrypted, but others showed full footage of people in their backyards talking, barbecuing, sunbathing. Private moments, unaware. But more disturbing than the footage was where the signal was coming from. The metadata showed a local receiver housed inside a building just 1 block away, the Willow Creek HOA community office. Cole didn't speak. He just stared at the screen. Doug looked at him uneasy. "This is way beyond HOA territory." Cole nodded slowly. "They're not just watching lawns." That evening, Cole attended the monthly HOA board meeting. It was held at the community clubhouse, a beige stucco building that looked harmless enough. Inside, the board sat in semi-formal dress behind a long folding table with microphones and an American flag propped in the corner. Benjamin Crane, the HOA president, stood in front of a crowd of about 30 homeowners. He was clean-cut with graying temples and the kind of voice that sounded like a morning radio host. Calm, friendly, persuasive. "And we remind everyone," Crane was saying, "to keep all landscaping within the approved parameters. Our neighborhood safety and beauty is a shared responsibility." Cole stepping forward. "Does that responsibility include flying drones over people's homes?" The room went quiet. Heads turned. Crane blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" Cole didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "I've tracked a surveillance drone that's been circling 7 properties every Thursday night. It broadcast back to a receiver registered inside this clubhouse." Crane gave a short laugh. "Sir, we don't authorize drones. That's absurd." "I've recovered the drone," Cole continued. "It's in my garage, along with weeks of footage it recorded. Your office was the signal hub." A flicker of something dark passed behind Crane's eyes, but he smiled it away. "If a rogue operator is using our facility, I assure you we'll investigate." Cole cut him off. "Spare me the speech. I work surveillance for the FBI. This isn't a rogue signal. This is coordinated, and I'm going to prove it." Crane's smile faded. Mr. Maddox, I suggest you calm down before you make baseless accusations in front of your neighbors. Cole turned to the room. I'm not accusing. I'm warning. If your HOA has nothing to hide, it won't mind when I bring in the feds. The board members shifted nervously. Crane narrowed his eyes but didn't speak again. As Cole walked out of the clubhouse, he didn't need to turn around to feel the weight of their stares. He had kicked the hornet's nest, and now he would see what crawled out of it. Later that night, the buzzing didn't come. He stood on the back porch for an hour, listening, scanning. But the air stayed still. Not even the wind dared to move. Then just before midnight, Cole checked the garage where he had kept the recovered drone. It was gone. Only a small lavender flower had been left behind, carefully placed on the bench where the drone had sat. Cole stared at it, his face hardening. Someone had been in his house. The game had changed. Now it was personal. Cole did not sleep. Not that night. Not after finding the flower. The house had shown no signs of a break-in, no broken lock, no camera triggered. He checked every window, every motion sensor, every inch of their small home. Whoever had entered had known what they were doing, and more importantly, had wanted him to know they had been there. Linda found him in the garage at sunrise, seated in silence, still staring at the empty bench. They didn't take anything else, she asked. Just the drone, Cole said. And they left me a message. He pointed to the lavender. Linda's mouth tightened. They're not even trying to hide anymore. No, they're trying to escalate. By noon, Cole was already on the phone with someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Ryan, it's Maddox. Cole, the voice on the other end, cracked with surprise. Are you calling me from suburbia? I need a trace run. Quiet. No agency trail. Ryan was an ex-NSA analyst turned cybersecurity consultant who owed Cole a life-size debt. He didn't ask questions. He just agreed to help. Cole sent over the signal logs and data from the recovered drone, which he had backed up on a portable drive. What he needed now wasn't just technical fingerprints. He needed names. He also needed someone local, someone inside the system. That's when he remembered the HOA technician, the one he had seen hovering awkwardly around the board meeting a few months back. Young guy, early 30s, always fiddling with the community Wi-Fi boxes or testing signal strength meters in the park. Curtis Lang. Cole pulled out the HOA newsletter and scanned the contact section. There it was, Technology and Safety Coordinator, Curtis L. The next morning, Cole drove to the community maintenance shed, where Curtis usually parked his small white van with the HOA logo on the side. The shed sat tucked between a dog park and an artificial pond, its entrance shadowed by rows of tall oaks. Curtis was there alone, crouched next to a signal box with a tablet in hand. Cole stepped out of the SUV and approached slowly. Curtis, he said calmly. Curtis looked up, startled. His eyes flicked with recognition. Oh, hey, Mr. Maddox, you need something. I think you and I need to talk in private. Curtis stood quickly, clutching the tablet like a shield. I'm kind of in the middle of... Don't worry, this won't take long. Cole motioned toward the SUV. Curtis hesitated. Then, perhaps sensing something unspoken in Cole's voice, he climbed in. They sat in the vehicle, windows up, engine off, silence stretching between them. Cole turned to him, steady and sharp. You know what's going on with the drones? Curtis blinked. I maintain the Wi-Fi systems. I don't. I found one. I dismantled it. I tracked its signal. It led straight to the HOA office. And unless you're willing to let this come down on your shoulders, you'd better start telling me the truth. Curtis swallowed hard. You don't understand. I didn't want to be part of it. I was told it was just for security, just to monitor the park and common areas. And then Curtis shifted uncomfortably. Then I saw the flight logs. They were recording audio from people's porches, thermal scans through windows. When I questioned it, Crane told me to keep quiet, said I was under contract, that if I spoke up, I'd be sued or worse. Cole leaned in slightly. What exactly are they recording? Curtis's voice dropped. Everything, not just video, conversations, movement patterns, even internet data from unsecured home networks. They've got antennas hidden in HOA light poles and inside birdhouses. Why? Curtis looked down. Control. They claim it's about enforcing compliance, making sure people don't break rules. But some of the board members, they were using the data for other things. Blackmail, real estate manipulation, selling access to outside interests. Cole's hands tightened on the steering wheel, and you went along with it. I didn't have a choice, Curtis said, voice cracking. But when you showed up at the meeting, I knew it was over. They're scared of you. Good, Cole said. They should be. He handed Curtis a flash drive. Everything you just told me, get it on here. Documents, access, logs, user credentials, backup storage paths. I want it all. Curtis hesitated. If I do this, I'm done. They'll come after me. No, Cole said firmly. I'll protect you, but you have to trust me. Curtis looked at him, and something in his face changed. A flicker of relief. Or maybe surrender. He nodded. I'll have it in 2 days. That night, Cole returned home and found Linda sitting on the porch with 2 mugs of coffee, one already growing cold. You're in this now, she said quietly. I was in it the moment they flew that thing over our roof. Linda reached into her pocket and handed him an envelope. It came in the mail. No return address. Cole opened it. Inside was a photo, black and white, grainy, but unmistakably from a drone's perspective. It was a photo of Linda sitting in their garden, reading a book, completely unaware. On the back, a handwritten note. Stop digging or we start recording inside. Cole stood there for a long moment, the photo trembling slightly in his hand. And then with deliberate calm, he tore the picture in half. They had gone too far, and now the gloves were off. Curtis kept his word. 2 days later, Cole received a knock at the door just after sunset. No one ever knocked at that hour in Willow Creek. When he opened the door, Curtis was standing there, his hoodie drawn up, eyes darting nervously down the street. He clutched a plain manila envelope. They're watching me, he whispered. Cole motioned him inside quickly. Linda appeared from the kitchen, phone in hand, until Cole gave her a nod. It was safe for now. Inside the envelope was a flash drive wrapped in aluminum foil and taped shut. Curtis set it down carefully on the kitchen table as if it were something radioactive. I copied everything I could without triggering the system, he said. Their server's old, but hooked into cloud backups. I couldn't get into the main feed, but I pulled logs, access credentials, and one video cache that hadn't been encrypted yet. Is it enough? Linda asked. Cole didn't answer immediately. He took the drive and walked it straight to his laptop in the garage where he had a secure offline terminal running a clean Linux boot. When the files opened, what stared back at him wasn't just proof. It was a blueprint of the entire operation. There were lists of properties flagged by the HOA, not for violations, but for suspicion. Anyone who had argued at meetings, refused a fine, or even failed to mow their lawn within the 3-day grace period. Next to each name was a drone flight log, audio records, timestamps, and in some cases, still shots from inside homes. They had gone far beyond rule enforcement. Cole clicked into one video. It was a father arguing with his teenage son inside their living room. The timestamp showed 11:42 p.m. The view was thermal, taken through the living room blinds. Audio had been synced later through a spliced microphone feed likely picked up from a nearby smart speaker. He watched a few more. A mother pacing her kitchen at night, visibly stressed. A couple whispering during an argument. A teenage girl practicing violin near her window. Every clip was intimate. None of it was any HOA's business. By the third video, Linda had walked in and stood behind him. They're spying on kids, she said, her voice hollow. They're not just spying, Cole replied. They're collecting, indexing, and I think they're selling. He clicked into a hidden directory Curtis had flagged. Inside were large encrypted files with obscure names, likely disguised archive exports. But one file was labeled plainly Demo Packet Client 3. Cole opened it. Inside was a slick PDF brochure offering enhanced property surveillance and compliance solutions. It advertised tailored HOA intelligence reports with visual documentation, timestamps, and AI-based threat ranking. The recipient, a real estate investment firm in Tampa, Florida. Linda covered her mouth. They're selling surveillance to outside buyers, she whispered, so they can flip homes. Or force sales, Cole said. This isn't just invasion of privacy, it's fraud, coercion, and federal data crimes. Cole leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. He knew what needed to happen next. He needed to bring in his former team. That night, he made 2 phone calls, one to Ryan, the ex-NSA analyst, who had quietly verified that the cloud backups tied to the HOA server were pinging off a third-party storage node hosted in Northern Virginia on a commercial server notorious for gray zone clients. The second call went to Deputy Director Jennings, an old boss from the Bureau. It took 2 minutes for Cole to explain the scope. Jennings didn't ask many questions. He just said one thing before hanging up. We'll need hard evidence. Give us a week to get jurisdiction squared away. Then be ready. In the meantime, Cole prepared. He turned his garage into a full-blown command center. Linda helped organize the files. Curtis sent updates daily, forwarding bits of internal HOA chatter. He intercepted messages between board members, growing increasingly paranoid. Crane's tone had shifted from smug to cautious. They suspected something, but they didn't know how much Cole had uncovered. Then a crack opened. Curtis messaged Cole with a warning the HOA had called an emergency board session off the books. Location Crane's private residence. Attendees the full board minus public notice. They're planning something, Curtis typed. Cole stared at the screen. He had a decision to make. The law would catch up, yes, but sometimes a small push was needed to make the avalanche fall. He looked at Linda. I'm going to that meeting. She didn't argue. She just said, be careful. That evening, Cole parked his SUV at a block from Crane's home deep in the northern corner of the neighborhood where the streets looped into cul-de-sacs with names like Serenity Circle and Roseview Lane. Crane's two-story colonial looked unassuming. Lights were on, upstairs, curtains drawn. Cole moved in silence, crouching behind trimmed hedges, his small, parabolic mic dish in hand, and a thermal camera rigged to his phone. He didn't need to get inside, he just needed to listen. Voices filtered through the device, tight, urgent. They know, one voice said. Lang's acting weird. Maddox is ex-FBI, for God's sake. I don't care who he is, another snapped. We wipe the drive torch, the backups, and if anyone asks, we say the security contractor went rogue. We need to talk to our buyers, Crane said. If this gets traced, we lose everything. There was a pause. Then one voice, quiet and chilling. We've handled worse. If Maddox won't stop digging, maybe he stops another way. Cole froze. The meeting went silent after that. He pulled back from the window and slipped away through the shadows, his jaw locked tight. That was all the confirmation he needed. They weren't just trying to silence the data. They were ready to silence him. Cole knew that what came next. He had lived on these patterns before in darker places with colder men. First came the surveillance, then the threats. And finally, if the target refused to bend, something always accidental would happen. A car crash, a burglary gone wrong, a gas leak. They hadn't made a mistake tapping into people's privacy. They made a mistake thinking Cole Maddox was like everyone else. By morning, he was ready. He installed a new surveillance setup inside his own home, ironically a level of monitoring he had never needed before. Motion sensors at every entrance. A fresh set of pinhole cameras with backup cloud storage routed through a private VPN, and a silent alarm trigger in his phone. Linda helped him recheck the locks and secure the garden fence. I know this isn't what retirement was supposed to be, he told her. Linda placed a hand over his. Then let's make sure it ends better than it started. Curtis, meanwhile, had gone completely off-grid. After overhearing one of the board members talking about cutting loose ends, he stopped using his own devices and started relaying everything to Cole through a temporary encrypted number Cole had provided. The DOJ team was still days away from executing a warrant, but Cole wasn't going to wait and hope that nothing exploded before then. He needed to trigger them, make them act. So he crafted a trap. Cole built a fake folder of files and labeled it HOA Surveillance Expose. Inside were harmless PDFs and screenshots he created with dummy metadata enough to look real to someone snooping. Then he uploaded it to a publicly visible folder on his Wi-Fi network, knowing full well the HOA snooping tools were still scraping local traffic. Next, he made a phone call from his landline, one he hadn't used in months, to an old bureau contact named Mel. She was loud, dramatic, and always ready to improvise. You're on speaker, he told her as soon as she picked up. Oh, hey, Cole, she replied with forced cheer. So this is the big case, huh? The one with the drones and the spying, HOA? Can't believe you tracked that signal back to their headquarters. Yeah, Cole said flatly. All the evidence is ready. I just need to keep it secure for a few more days. Totally, Mel replied. Nobody's touching that until the feds move in. You hear me? Not one soul. Then she hung up. Cole left that line active and walked away from the phone, leaving it right near the front window where it could be seen. Now it was a waiting game. By the second night, he noticed it. A car he hadn't seen before, a dull gray SUV parked 2 houses down. No markings. Windows dark. Its lights flickered briefly around 2 a.m., then shut off. At 3:17 a.m., motion triggered his backyard sensor. Cole, lying in bed, silently checked the camera feed on his phone. There at the edge of his property was a man in dark clothing. He wasn't holding a clipboard. He wasn't wearing a vest. He was holding a signal jammer and a crowbar. Cole didn't move. He waited, watched as the man moved toward the back door, watched as he tried the handle locked. Then as he crouched, pulled a tool from his pocket and began working the lock. Cole tapped his phone. The silent alarm activated. 1 mile away, Deputy Sheriff Rivas, on Cole's request, was already sitting with his cruiser in a nearby parking lot ready. Within 5 minutes, lights flashed down the street. The man at the back door froze, scrambled over the fence and ran. But he didn't make it far. The next morning, Cole stood at the station watching the footage. The man hadn't spoken a word during booking. Fake ID, burner phone, no fingerprints in the system. but his crowbar had smudges of red paint, the exact same shade used on Cole's back door trim. Sheriff Rivas looked up from the file. "You think this is HOA related?" "I know it is," Cole said, "but he's not the real threat. He's a warning." Rivas leaned back. "So what do you want to do?" Cole stared at the screen at the freeze frame of the man's face under the station lights. "I want to finish this." The arrest sent a ripple through the quiet streets of Willow Creek. Cole knew it the moment he stepped outside the following morning. The stares from neighbors weren't nosy, they were tense. Curious but guarded. Some had clearly heard about the break-in attempt. Others only felt that something was shifting under their feet. The friendly routine of dog walkers, porch chats, and garden small talk now carried a strange edge. At the HOA office, the reaction was more telling. Cole drove by around noon. The blinds were shut. The usual community hours sign was flipped to closed. 2 board members were seen hurrying out the back door carrying cardboard boxes. The trap had worked. They knew. Inside Cole's garage, the war room had evolved. The chalkboard was now filled with names, connection diagrams, and a full timeline of drone deployment, financial reports, and file transfers. Linda, now fully involved, had compiled a list of residents who'd been watched, cross-referencing them with real estate activity and HOA fine history. Curtis, after laying low, came back online that evening with a fresh drop and audio recording of Benjamin Crane's latest board call. Cole and Linda listened in silence as the recording played. "He's bluffing. No way he has full access," Crane said. Another voice cut in. "Then how did he know about the Tampa files?" "I don't care how. We've already started burning logs. Wipe the cloud storage, shut down the relay system, and make sure that house is dark. No more flyovers. We're radio silent until this blows over." "But what about the buyers? They want updates." "They'll wait. If Maddox goes to the media, we'll say it's retaliation. A vendetta. Use his background against him. PTSD, unstable, paranoid. It's all easy to spin." Cole clicked pause. "They're trying to discredit you," Linda said. He nodded. "Typical protocol. Make the whistleblower the problem. Dirty their name before they speak." But what Crane didn't understand was that Cole hadn't spent his career just catching criminals. He had studied how they operated under pressure. And this HOA wasn't just scared, it was cracking. That night, he contacted Jennings. "The board is destroying data," Cole said. "They've started covering their tracks. And I have proof they attempted to break into my home." "I've already escalated," Jennings replied. "DOJ, Cybercrimes and Privacy Task Force is in. You'll get a formal go-ahead in 24 hours. Hold your position." "I'm not holding anything. I'm finishing it." Jennings sighed. "Then at least make sure we have a clean chain of custody. We're bringing the hammer down on these people, but we need it to stick." The next morning, Cole sent out a wave of private messages to a few trusted neighbors, those who had spoken up before complained about violations or been targets of strange fines. He didn't tell them everything. He just invited them over for coffee and a quick conversation. 7 showed up. They sat in folding chairs in Cole's garage, staring at the projected screen as he walked them through what he had found. He didn't use fear, he used facts. He showed the drone logs, the property ranking files, the videos of their own homes blurred to protect them, but enough to make their stomachs turn. When he was done, no one said a word. Then a woman named Donna spoke. "I thought I was imagining it. I thought the camera light in my baby monitor was blinking when it wasn't supposed to." Another man added, "I've had my property devalued twice in 2 years. The same investment firm bought up the lot next to me." "You're telling us one of them asked Cole this whole time the HOA was spying on us to flip houses?" "Yes," Cole said plainly. "And now that they know I've caught them, they're trying to disappear everything. I need witnesses. I need people to speak when this goes public." Every single person in the garage nodded. That evening, the neighborhood's group chat, usually filled with lawn tips and lost dog alerts, exploded with whispers. Someone had finally said it out loud. "The HOA has been watching us." Crane tried to do damage control. A mass email went out within hours calling the rumors baseless hysteria. It accused a former federal agent with questionable mental health of spreading fear. The board even threatened legal action for defamation. Cole smiled when he read it, because that was the final move of the desperate threaten to sue before the truth hits daylight. Later that night, a final message arrived from Curtis. It was a code, a signal they had agreed on in case things went sideways. Server down, backup wiped, physical logs burned. Crane had done it. He thought he had buried it all. But what he didn't know, couldn't know, was that every step of that process had already been mirrored, documented, and backed up. Curtis had uploaded everything to a sealed DOJ drive 2 days earlier. And in less than 24 hours, the hammer would fall. Cole looked out the window that night, watching as the wind rustled the lavender plants by the fence. The very bush where the drone had first been caught. It swayed gently in the breeze, unaware of the war it had helped start. He turned to Linda. Tomorrow they find out what real surveillance looks like. The sun rose quietly over Willow Creek, casting long shadows across perfectly trimmed hedges and HOA-approved mailboxes. The stillness felt manufactured, like the neighborhood itself was holding its breath. Cole had felt this kind of silence before, right before raids, before operations went live. He knew what it meant. Today was the day. By 7:00 a.m., Cole had already checked all his feeds backups and the final evidence package he and Linda had assembled overnight. The files were organized, time-stamped, verified, and ready to be handed off. A small, encrypted drive sat in a black case on the kitchen table beside 2 cups of black coffee and a copy of the Willow Creek HOA bylaws highlighted in red. At 8:10 a.m., 3 unmarked, black SUVs pulled into the neighborhood. They moved slow, quiet, deliberate. From behind his curtain, Cole watched as the doors opened and men and women in dark blue jackets stepped out. Their windbreakers bore the unmistakable lettering, Department of Justice, Privacy Crimes Division. 4 more vehicles followed. Local police, a van from the FBI cyber unit, and finally the county district attorney's office. The sting had begun. Cole slipped on his old jacket, grabbed the drive, and stepped out onto his porch. He didn't need to say a word. One of the agents met him halfway down the sidewalk and nodded. "Special Agent Maddox," the woman said. "Appreciate the work you've done here." "You'll find everything you need on this," Cole said, handing her the case. "Curtis Lang should be your first point of contact inside. He's waiting at his apartment and willing to testify." The agent dotted again, then spoke into her radio. "Go." The team moved in waves. Crane's house was first. 6 agents surrounded the property while 2 approached the front door with a warrant. The moment Crane opened the door, his face slack with shock. They stepped in and began reading him his rights. "Benjamin Crane, you are under investigation for violations of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. Wiretapping without consent, unlawful surveillance, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud." Neighbors gathered quickly. Phones came out. People whispered. A few clapped quietly. Others just stood frozen, watching the fall of the man who had ruled their lives with perfectly manicured iron. Down the street, other board members were pulled from their homes. Devices seized, papers boxed, HOA servers disconnected and loaded into evidence vans. A few tried to protest, claiming ignorance, blaming Crane, but the warrants were airtight and the DOJ wasn't here to negotiate. At the clubhouse, the digital team worked quickly. The office was stripped of its routers, hard drives, and cloud sync stations. Inside a locked cabinet, agents found several boxes labeled archive that included hand-scribbled notes on drone placement, resident profiles, and payout records from anonymous shell companies. Linda, watching from their front window, turned to Cole. They thought they had erased everything. "They were careful," Cole said, "just not careful enough." By noon, Crane was in handcuffs. His face pale, his once slick hair now sticking to his forehead. Reporters had begun to gather near the gates of Willow Creek. Someone had leaked the story. A few headlines were already going live. HOA surveillance scandal rocks suburban community. Drones, wiretaps, and real estate fraud. Inside the Willow Creek investigation. Cole stood beside Agent Franklin, the DOJ team lead, as they watched Crane being placed into the back of a cruiser. "Not the worst I've seen," Franklin said, "but definitely the most domesticated." Cole smirked at him. "Control freaks with technology are always the most dangerous. They hide behind rules, pretend it's for the greater good. Not anymore." That evening, Cole and Linda sat on their porch, a calm breeze rolling in from the east. The neighborhood felt different, lighter. The lavender in the yard had bloomed slightly, the scent rising gently through the air. Across the street, neighbors waved. Someone brought over a pie. A few offered quiet thanks. Curtis walked up the path around sunset, hands in his pockets, eyes tired but peaceful. "You did it," he said. "No," Cole replied. "We did." Curtis nodded. "DOJ offered me a deal. Witness protection, job placement, full immunity. You should take it." "I think I will." He looked around the street. "You think this place will recover?" Cole looked down the row of homes, at the children riding bikes again, at the older couple planting flowers, at the group of neighbors laughing over wine in a driveway. "It already is." And then for the first time in weeks, Cole leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and exhaled. Not because the fight was over, but because justice had finally arrived. 2 weeks after the raid, Willow Creek looked almost unchanged from the outside lawns, still trimmed hedges, still shaped with obsessive symmetry, and American flags still hung perfectly from wooden porch beams. But beneath the surface, something had shifted. The power was gone, not the electricity, the fear. The HOA, once omnipresent, had gone silent. Its email reminders stopped. No citations appeared on door handles. The office remained locked, its windows covered in brown butcher paper pending investigation. No board meetings, no newsletters, no threats disguised as friendly reminders. People started stepping out more. Neighbors who had once rushed from car to door now lingered on sidewalks. Kids played later in the evening. The tension that had strangled the neighborhood like ivy had finally withered. Cole found himself sitting on the porch more often, watching the slow return of normal, or maybe the first arrival of it. On one of those afternoons, a group of residents showed up unexpectedly, 15 of them. Some carried coffee, others brought notebooks. They stood quietly for a moment as Cole looked up from his chair. A man named Victor stepped forward. Middle-aged, usually quiet, always kept to himself until recently. "We were talking," Victor said, "about what comes next." "Next?" Cole asked. "With the HOA gone, someone has to step in. Not to control things, but to protect them. Keep people from being silenced again. We want to build something new, something transparent." Another woman added, "We want you to help us, Cole, be part of it, maybe even lead it." Cole raised his eyebrows. "You want me to run a neighborhood association?" "No," Victor said. "We want you to help build a new one from scratch. No spying, no corruption, just community." Linda stepped out and handed him a fresh cup of coffee. She gave him a look, part amused, part proud. "You always did hate power unless it had rules," she said. Cole stood slowly sipping the drink as he scanned the group. They weren't eager. They weren't desperate. They were determined. "I'll help," he said, "but only if we agree on one thing from the start." "What's that?" Victor asked. "We serve the people who live here. Not the rules, not the property values, the people. That's the only reason this works." They nodded in unison. That night, Cole and Linda sat at the dining table drafting what would become Willow Creek's new community charter. No legalese, no hidden clauses. Just 6 simple principles: honesty, privacy, respect, communication, fairness, and transparency. They posted a draft copy online and invited residents to suggest edits. Within 48 hours, they received over 200 comments, some critiques, some additions, but all respectful. Curtis, from his temporary safe housing a few counties away, sent a message, "That charter, it's gonna make news," for the right reasons this time. A few days later, the national news cycle picked up a new headline. Ex-FBI agent helps build HOA alternative after surveillance scandal. Cole ignored the interview requests. He wasn't looking for attention. He was looking for closure, for balance. The only visitor he accepted from outside the neighborhood was a quiet young man from a veterans organization. He brought a sealed envelope from Deputy Director Jennings, inside a letter thanking Cole for his service. Again. And a handwritten note. "Sometimes the battlefield finds you, Cole. Good thing you never forget how to fight." The weeks became months. Where there had once been HOA inspection drones, now there were community-led volunteer patrols on foot, smiling, waving. Where residents had once been fined for flowers out of regulation, now they received compliments. And where children had once played under unblinking cameras, now they played under real watchful eyes of neighbors who cared not, boards who spied. One Saturday morning, Cole stepped out to check the mail and noticed a new bush growing by the fence line. Lavender planted by a neighbor. Then he saw another and another. It wasn't a trend, it was a tribute. Linda walked up behind him, holding 2 cups of coffee. He nodded toward the lavender and smiled faintly. "I guess people remember what started it all." She slipped her hand into his. They should. And as the breeze passed through the yard, brushing the lavender with the soft hum of a new beginning, Cole Maddox knew the war was over. At least in Willow Creek. The knock came just after dusk. Cole had just finished clearing the last of the hedge clippings from the front yard, still wearing gloves dusted with dirt. The air was cool, a welcome break from the heat of early summer, and the lavender was in full bloom, soaking the neighborhood in a calming scent. He didn't recognize the man on the porch. Late 30s, sharp suit, no tie. Clean cut, but not local, too polished. Eyes that had seen too much to belong to a real estate agent. Cole stiffened slightly as the man gave a polite smile and extended a hand. "Mr. Maddox, my name's Evan Thorne. Mind if I have a minute?" Cole didn't move to shake the hand. "Depends on who you are and what you're selling." "I'm not here to sell," Thorne replied calmly. "I'm here about the data, the drone program." Cole's eyes narrowed. "You're not with the DOJ." "No, Private sector, but I used to be sort of adjacent. He gestured to the porch. Just 5 minutes, I promise. Cole watched him carefully, then stepped aside. Not because he trusted him, but because 5 minutes was enough to get answers, or at least intentions. They sat across from each other, silence between them, as Linda quietly closed the front door, remaining within earshot. I'm not going to dance around it, Thorne began. The Tampa real estate firm, your investigation exposed Evercore Holdings. They weren't the end of the line. They were one of several clients buying community surveillance data from HOA systems. Cole said nothing. I used to work in private intelligence. Not the cool spy stuff. The boring, slow kind, data harvesting, consumer behavior modeling, smart home access tracking. Stuff most people sign away in user agreements. He leaned forward. But what you uncovered here in Willow Creek, that was the first time it crossed into coercion. People were being watched not for marketing, but for manipulation. HOA boards were being offered incentives to plant tech under the guise of neighborhood security, with full back-end access given to buyers like Evercore. And Willow Creek wasn't the only one. Cole's jaw flexed. How many, he asked? Thorne exhaled. 12 that I know of. Florida, Arizona, Texas. Even one up in Oregon. Some of them are worse. One community was monitoring smart locks, logging door activity, and using it to flag unoccupied homes for lowball offers. Cole stood slowly. Why are you telling me this? Because someone needs to chase it. And the DOJ is already overwhelmed. They'll build their case eventually. But this network is slippery. You're the only one who's actually gotten inside the walls. I'm not a vigilante, Cole said. Thorne nodded. No, but you are someone who still gives a damn. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black thumb drive. Encrypted files, a breadcrumb trail, HOA contract templates, drone supplier names, payment processors. I risked a lot getting this out. Cole took it, but didn't look at it yet. What do you want from me? Thorne stood. Nothing, except maybe for you to keep doing what you're already doing. Because if they know who you are now, they'll make sure this doesn't happen again. At least not in the same way. He paused at the steps. You scared them, Cole. They didn't think anyone would fight back. You proved them wrong. Without another word, Thorne walked down the sidewalk and disappeared into the night. Cole stood there for a long moment, the drive in his palm feeling heavier than it should. Linda stepped outside. Who was that? Trouble, Cole said quietly. And maybe a map. They went inside. Cole booted up a separate laptop, one not connected to his main systems. He inserted the drive. Folders appeared labeled by city, by HOA, by dates, stretching back 5 years. Each one a digital trap dressed as community management. He scrolled slowly, and then he stopped. One folder was labeled Fairmount Estates HOA, Flagstaff AZ. He clicked it open. Inside were documents signed by a familiar name. The same drone contractor who had once worked Willow Creek under a shell company. At the bottom of the file set was a single video. Cole hesitated, then clicked play. The footage showed a backyard, a child running through sprinklers, a mother standing at the kitchen window brushing her hair, and then a slow pan to the upstairs bedroom. The screen went black. Cole closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair. It wasn't over. Not even close. Days passed. Cole didn't speak much after the visit from Evan Thorne. He spent his mornings tending the lavender, his afternoons walking the neighborhood, checking in on people, listening more than talking. But Linda could tell something was shifting inside him. Not fear, not anger. Something deeper. The quiet weight of unfinished business. One night, she found him in the garage again, surrounded by open files and 2 laptops running side by side. His old bureau rhythm had returned. Focused, sleepless, controlled chaos. You're going after them, aren't you? She asked softly. Cole didn't look up. If this is happening in other neighborhoods, then this wasn't just a rogue operation. It's a system, built to grow, covered in nice words like safety and efficiency, but it's still rot. Linda stepped beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. We could walk away. You've done more than anyone ever expected. He finally looked at her. And if I do, someone else gets watched. Someone else's child becomes another file on another hard drive. She nodded, not in defeat, but in solidarity. The next morning, Cole stood at the center of the Willow Creek Community Park. A few dozen residents had gathered, those who had helped rebuild, those who had spoken up, and many who had only recently found their courage. He stood on the gazebo steps, lavender blooming all around him, and spoke plainly. You all know what happened here. You know what was taken from us, our privacy, our dignity, our sense of home, And we fought back, together. Heads nodded across the crowd. But what you may not know is that we were just one of many. There are other neighborhoods out there just like ours being watched by people they never voted for. Manipulated, exploited, silenced. He paused. I'm not asking you to follow me into a fight. I'm asking you to help others start their own, to tell our story, to speak up, to push for laws that protect our homes from the inside out. Because privacy isn't a luxury, it's a right. And community isn't control, it's connection. An older woman in the front row wiped her eyes. A young couple held hands. A teenager lifted their phone recording. We planted lavender here, Cole said, looking around, not because it's HOA approved, but because it reminds us that peace doesn't come from silence. It comes from strength, from people willing to stand. Applause broke gently, then grew into something stronger, real grateful, rising like a wave. That evening, Cole sat with Linda beneath the warm glow of the porch light. The laptop with Thorne's data was packed away. It would travel with him quietly, one neighborhood at a time. Not as a soldier, not even as an agent, but as a citizen who remembered what it meant to belong and what it felt like to be violated. When the stars appeared, Cole leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and for the first time in months, breathed without weight on his chest. The war in Willow Creek was over, but the mission had just begun. Side story, the sound of silence. It started with a phone call. The voice on the other end was hesitant, almost embarrassed to speak. Mr. Maddox, I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Amanda Keene. I live 2 streets over on Birch Hollow. I got your number from Mrs. Chan. She said you helped with the surveillance thing. I'm not sure if this is even something, but Cole listened patiently. Something in her voice held tension, not panic, but a tightness that didn't come from paranoia. He had heard that tone before, often in the voices of people who didn't yet understand they were in danger. I think someone is messing with my son, Amanda said. He's been acting strange. Says he hears things at night, in the walls. I checked, but there's nothing. Then I started hearing them too, clicking sounds, just for a second, like a tick, and then gone. I feel crazy even saying it. Cole asked if she had noticed anything else, missing objects, lights flickering, strange Wi-Fi behavior. Amanda hesitated. Our smart speaker turned on once, in the middle of the night, just one word, listening. That got Cole's attention. He told her he would come by the next morning. When he arrived, Amanda was waiting outside with her son Lucas, a quiet boy with dark eyes and a stack of worn books in his lap. Amanda led Cole through their modest home, pointing out where she had heard the sounds behind the living room drywall, once in the bedroom vent, and twice from the smart speaker itself. She looked ashamed as she said it aloud. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like someone's watching us again even after everything that happened. Cole didn't dismiss it. He knew better. He started with the vents. No sign of tampering. He moved to the walls and found no loose wires. But something odd caught his attention. Near the speaker, the baseboard had a tiny nick, a clean vertical scratch, almost invisible. He opened his toolkit and gently removed the speaker unit from the wall. Inside was a small black capsule, thumb-sized, sleek, passive. A sound bug. Amanda gasped. What is that? New Tech, Cole muttered. Passive listening device, no battery. Powered by ambient sound. Hard to detect. Someone planted it here. Amanda covered her mouth. Who would do this? Cole didn't answer right away. He inspected the area for other anomalies and found a similar capsule behind a picture frame in Lucas's room. Both had been placed carefully, strategically. Later that afternoon, Cole returned with a narrowband receiver and a signal reader. He swept the house and found 2 more capsules, all inactive now. Whoever had planted them had shut them off, perhaps because they knew Amanda was talking. He removed each one and placed them in a signal-blocking pouch. The devices were too clean. No serial numbers? Too new to be in wide use, which meant they came from someone who had access to specialized hardware. Cole took the devices to Doug Parrish, the former telecom tech, who had helped him during the drone investigation. Doug examined them with fascination. These are like little ears, but they're not recording. They're transmitting short bursts of encrypted data whenever they pick up a trigger phrase or keyword. This is spy grade. Can you trace it? Cole asked. Doug shook his head. Not directly, but I can monitor the packet frequency. See where it's headed next time it activates. For 3 nights, Cole and Doug waited. And then around midnight on the 3rd night, one of the bugs pinged. The signal bounced off a nearby relay tower before redirecting to a data center 30 miles away, a facility owned by a property analytics firm that had recently expanded into residential security consulting. The same firm that had bought data from Evercore Holdings in the original Willow Creek case. Cole stared at the screen, jaw tight. They weren't just selling data. They were planning their own. The next day, Cole drove to the data center. It was a sleek, sterile building tucked off a county highway, all glass and brushed steel with no signage. He didn't try to get in. Instead, he recorded video of the entry points, the deliveries, the license plates, and the security layout. Back home, he compiled everything into a report and sent it to Agent Franklin at the DOJ. Her reply came within the hour. "We're tracking this too. You're ahead of the curve. Sit tight and stay alert." Cole didn't sit tight. He returned to Birch Hollow and replaced Amanda's speaker system with analog alternatives. He installed physical locks on her smart devices and showed Lucas how to spot bugs, turning the lesson into a game. He also advised Amanda to run a full privacy sweep of her online accounts. By the end of the week, the clicking had stopped. Lucas smiled more. Amanda began sleeping again. As Cole left their home, Amanda stepped out onto the porch. "I don't know what we would have done if you hadn't believed us," she said. Cole nodded. You're not crazy. You were just one of the first to hear the silence when it stopped sounding right." She looked confused. "Silence isn't always safe," Cole explained. "Sometimes it's where the real danger hides." As he walked away, the lavender lining the street caught a gentle breeze. Another family protected, another layer of the network exposed. And Cole Maddox once again found himself listening closely, not for sound, but for what it meant when it disappeared. Because in the new world of surveillance and silence, the quiet ones were often the ones watching. And he intended to keep watching back. End of side story. Let me know if you'd like more side missions like this, domestic, legal, tech-focused, or even physical confrontations. In real life, this story is a powerful reminder that privacy is not just about keeping secrets. It's about maintaining control over our lives, our homes, and our peace of mind. Today, with smart devices, connected homes, and digital conveniences, it's easier than ever for someone to exploit our trust and access private moments without consent. That's why it's important to stay informed. Secure your devices regularly, review privacy settings, and trust your instincts when something feels off. If you notice unusual behavior from electronics, strange sounds, or feel like you're being watched, don't ignore it. Ask questions. Investigate. Speak up. Like Cole Maddox, we may not all be agents, but we can all be defenders of our space and advocates for our right to live without silent intrusion.